in our market today, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, they were built around a leader with a vision. And this leader with a vision created that culture. Most leaders are typically people that are serving of their community. I believe that their incentive and their motivation and their integrity lines up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Service Hustle. I'm your host, Jonathan Bannister, and today we've got the founder and CEO of Service Excellence Training, Todd Liles. Todd, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, Jonathan, thank you for having me. I really appreciate an opportunity to come on, share what we're doing here at Service Excellence and at Spark, and just let you pick my brain. But I'm going to warn you, Jonathan, it could be a dangerous place, but I'm going to let you go there if you want to.
Nah, this is going to be a great interview. I was riding somewhere a little earlier with my wife, and she's like, who you having on the show? And I told her, I was like, yeah, he went to Southern Mississippi. I was like, he's got some Mississippi ties to him as well. And she Googled you and looked you up, and she was reading some of those 13 interesting facts about you on your website. And she was just like, oh my God, I may have to listen into this one. Like, he seems like super interesting. So,
Cool.
Tell me, so I know you're a Southern boy. So tell me, you were born in Louisiana? Which part?
Yeah, I was actually born in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Born at the woman's hospital. I think it's actually the women's hospital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My dad is a welder by trade.
Okay.
So yeah, my whole family would move around. My cousins are still doing that as a profession, but when we were all kids, right? My dad would pack us up, and my aunt, her husband was a welder. My grandpa was a welder. Man, it was like a family affair. We'd go hang out at some places for a while. I don't even remember. I was too little. But yeah, Baton Rouge was where my dad was working, and my mom gave birth to me. And at some point, mom said, I don't want to do all this traveling stuff anymore. So she's like, we better settle down. And they're all from Mississippi. So back to Mississippi.
Which part of Mississippi?
Man, the little town that I grew up in, it's not even a town. It's technically called a village. So first you got to know my mom and my dad got a divorce, and she got remarried. So I lived in this little place called Sanford. That's where I stayed until I was in the 10th grade. And Sanford was a 30-minute bus commute. It took about 30 minutes to 45 minutes by the time you picked up all the kids, right? To go to seminary, which is where we went to school. Okay. And I'm going to put it into perspective for you, Jonathan. If you were to pull up the census of seminary, you type in seminary, Mississippi, look at population, it's 369 people. And I had to be bused to go to school there. Give you an idea of the size of the town that I grew up in. Really, really, really small town. So I've always, I grew up rurally. And part of my story, and I think part of what made me who I am, was that I do believe that God gifted me with a lot of natural talent and a lot of natural intelligence. And he also gifted me with the opportunities to grow a blue collar. I was literally cutting down trees at the age of 11 in the woods with my stepdad and running the pulpwood hauler. I tell people that and they're like, oh, that's bull crap. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. I realized I'd never let my son or my daughter do that, but I was doing that. And I actually started working on homes at the age of 14 because it was substantially easier than working in the fields, the piney woods of Mississippi. I said, I'm getting out of this shit. And, started working with Mackie Mayfield. Mackie Mayfield at the time was 18. He was dating my sister who was 16, and they got married when she turned 18. They're still married. Kids and grandkids, the whole 9 yards now, man. So yeah, no, the trades is in my blood. My dad was a welder, and then literally doing trades work at the age of 14, and I'll be 45 next month. So some people say they got like 30 years in the business. I really do. I started doing this when I was 14, man.
So you go from construction at 14, 15, somewhere there?
So from about the age of 14 to 16, and I would build homes on the weekends, after hours with my brother-in-law. And then I went through a real bad phase when my mom was going through a divorce with her stepdad. Started hanging around some of the wrong crowds. She ended up kicking me out of the house when I was 16. Thank God she did. She probably saved my life, man. I was getting in to some bad stuff. So I went to live with my father, and while I was there for 2 years in college, I actually did mechanical work. My step uncle Mark had a little auto shop, and he said, "Why don't you come work with me?" And man, that was an awesome experience. He and I built my first car, which was a 1984 Nissan Sentra. We took two cars that he had in his shop, one that had a good body, one that had a good motor, and we rebuilt them. So that cost $600. I had to buy the body, the good body from a lady for $600. I had to buy the motor, pardon me, for $300. I had to buy the motor for three, so the body and the motor. And Uncle Mark and I did it. So I did that while I was in high school. And then when I got in college, during the summer breaks, I would go back home my junior, pardon me, my freshman and my sophomore year, continuing to work in the trades. And the last 2 years in college, I didn't go back. I ended up, while I was in college, working at a pet store. That's a pretty interesting story. I'll tell you sometime. But it's actually what got me introduced to business. Was this lady was a very good friend of mine, and she was very addicted to drugs. And I was going to take her to the bank, Jonathan, to get money so she could send her husband to rehab. And on the way there, I realized like she needs to go to rehab. So the banker was a personal friend of hers, and the banker and I, wired the money to the rehab clinic. And he's like, "You take Rebecca straight there." I was like, "All right." So I took her straight there, and boy, that was a fight. She didn't want to go. It was really a crazy, wild experience. But when we got back, now you got to keep in mind, I think let's see, at this point, I'm a sophomore, not into my junior year yet. It's getting closer to the summer. And when we got back, her grandmother, Miss Sally, came in and said, "Okay, what are we going to do?" And well, we made a plan. Plan number one was we had to take money out of the drawer every day because her husband, Pat, would come in and steal it. So it's like, all right, let's stop the bleeding. That's really simple. Plan number two is we had to start talking to vendors who hadn't been paid on time because these two people were using the money for drugs, and start saving up some cash to start putting some stock back in the store. And my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she was all in, and Sally was all in. And Rebecca ended up doing a really long period in rehab. So I learned business the hard way. And it wasn't my business. Um, I guess I didn't have to care if it survived, but I did care.
Right.
And by the time it was all said and done, that business was profitable. It was making money. When Rebecca came out, we turned the keys back over to her. Shannon started running it, and Shannon's our CFO today. And she successfully ran that business for a decade or more after that, and eventually sold it for a profit and is now running a second business. And I love Rebecca. Rebecca Huff, I love you. I love your son. And she doesn't care that I tell this story because it's a part of her life and her redemption too. So that's really what got me hooked on business, was working at that pet store for 2 years, and then getting introduced to other business owners. That when I graduated college, I ended up working at an air conditioning company. Not directly. I first worked at a laboratory supply company, of all things. Jonathan, what? Laboratory supply? Yeah, this guy bought fish tanks from me and fish from me, and he's like, "Hey, won't you? You've got a great personality. Won't you come do sales for me?" And I did, and that served its period of time. That was about 8 months, and I met a guy named Mike Bellissimo that owned a company called Service First in West Monroe, Louisiana. And I used to do the environmental testing for him. I would go collect those tests, sell it. That's how I met the guy. All right, so this is my introduction into air conditioning.
So let me
This is
ask you. Hold on. Let me ask you this. So the pet store,
I'm just going, aren't I?
where was the pet store? Was it in Hattiesburg?
In Ruston, Louisiana. I went to school at Louisiana Tech.
Okay. All right. All right. So you're still in Louisiana then, or you left Mississippi at what age?
I left Mississippi at 18. So
Okay.
yeah. So we're interesting story, man. I was really into arts. The whole time I'm doing mechanical work, building homes, that entire time I'm also doing theater and speech and debate. Thought I was going to be a lawyer. It was like, I'm going to be a lawyer, right? And at seminary, it was mostly about speech and debate and extemporaneous speaking. We'd do one play a year. And then I switched schools, and that school didn't have a strong speech and debate team. So it was like, well, we do more plays and we'll do like one speech and debate tournament a year. It's kind of flipped. But my senior year, we got to go to state and we won state, and then we went to nationals. And man, I got scholarships to all sorts of schools. I got a ride to UT. I got a ride to the University of Cincinnati. NYU sent me a scholarship, and their division of NYU Film School sent me a scholarship. So for like a hot minute, man, I'm thinking I'm going to be an actor. But then, oh yeah, go back to we're broken. We don't have any money, and nobody's going to take me to New York to look at school. So I just followed my girlfriend to Louisiana Tech.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm glad I did, man. It was a great education. I had a blast. I don't regret a minute of it.
So tell me now, you're getting ready to get to the introduction to HVAC. So
Yeah.
where was day one there?
So this is what happened. Doing these laboratory tests, there's a plant in Lufkin, Texas.
I was just there like 2 weeks ago. Not a lot there.
So there's not a lot there, right? You got Trey McWilliams and some of those guys serving people over there, but there's a Georgia Pacific plant out in Lufkin, and that was one of my environmental clients. And I think the guy's name was Tom Bauer, if I remember right. He had a water cooler sitting on his desk. Pardon me, not a water cooler, but a water chiller. It's what they use to control water to certain temperatures to test their resins to make sure they were, curing properly. And I was there for essentially like collecting lab samples. But he goes, "You got technicians at your place. Could you guys fix this?" I said, "Well, I can take it and let you know." So I took it in, put it in front of 2 techs, and the next day they told me it was fixed. I loaded it back in my car, took it back to Tom. I'm like, I'm excited that we were able to fix it. I got to Shreveport, and he called me and said it was broke. It didn't work. So I turned around and went back there and picked it up. I was really irritated by that point, Jonathan. So the next day I went and took it into our little lab, and I took it apart and just started looking. And the most obvious thing was the fan wasn't running. There's a little fan on there. Same exact fan like you would put into a computer, same size, right? I was like, well, that's easy enough. So I took that off, and then I was looking at what was the condenser. I didn't know it was the condenser at the time. I know that's what it is now. And it was really dirty. It was all sticky with resin, and I cleaned that up. And I went down to Radio Shack and just did one of these numbers. Oh, that one matches. And I brought it back. I reassembled it. And I turned it on. I smoked the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, no.
Wrong size.
I quickly ripped it off. And what I realized was, in my brain, they sold me a bad fan. I took it to Radio Shack and said, "Man, you sold me a bad fan." He picked up the fan that he sold me, and he picked up the fan that was in it. And he looked at the numbers on there and goes, no. You bought the wrong voltage. Let me get you the right voltage. So I had to repay for that, but I put it back together and it worked like a champ. I made sure I tested it before I left. And I was like, all right, this is really cool. So, all in, I think that we had priced it at like $500 or something, nothing crazy. It might've been a little bit more than that. I took it back to Tom. So here you go. And he said, "What's the damage on that?" And I told him it was like $550. And he goes, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm having to replace these all the time. They're like $5,000 every time I replace them. I've got them all over this plant. Do you think that you could work me up some sort of thing to where you come in periodically and you replace the parts that are going bad and keep it going?" I said, "Well, I think I can." So I counted up all of his instruments. I figured out the number of times I have to go back there, probability of failure, created an Excel sheet, and I created a $24,000 a year maintenance program, knowing that was going to save him a ton of money. He said yes. So that was my first air conditioning maintenance program sale, was keeping these water chillers running so that they could do their laboratory testing. I told that story to Mike Bellissimo, and he said, "Boy, you could sell air conditioning. Come work for me." He goes, "That's just air conditioning." I was like, "All right, let's do it." So, and this is what he also told me, Jonathan. He said, "Man, I got $1 million business. I'll pay you anywhere from between 10 to 6% commissions. And you just come work for me and you can make all kind of money." And I'm going, $1 million? He's going to pay me 10%. I mean, I'm thinking I'm right out of college. I just got my first $100,000 gig. So, stop me if I'm talking too much about this.
I love this story.
So I negotiate my base. I had to negotiate 30,000. That was hard fought. And the whole time he's like, "You're going to get all these commissions." So on day one, when I go in there, I said, "All right, Mike, I'm ready, man. Let me get the client list." He had his feet up on his desk. He pulled them down. He reached up under his counter and he dropped the yellow pages. Boom. And he put them on the desk. Boom. He goes, there's your client list right there. I said, what about the $1 million in clients you were talking about? He said, man, it took me 18 years to collect those people. I'm not giving them to you. You go find them. You've got a base. So I was a real legit door-to-door salesman for residential. Well, it didn't start off residential. It was commercial HVAC services. I'll tell you how it became residential. Literally, I had to go find everything. So I sat down and I just did the first thing I knew to do, which was who's my first point of contact. And I knew a guy named Benny Bean who ran the U.S. Filter, which is like a water treatment division for the city of Bastrop. And I knew Benny because we did his environmental testing. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I got to start somewhere. So I got in my car and I drove up and I'm talking to Benny. Hey, Benny, I'm doing this now. And, just visiting with him. I'm like, Benny, if you ever have any work whatsoever, anything at all, we'd love to take care of you. We're a commercial services company. We can fix anything related to humidity and temperature control. Well, he's like, I've actually got a dehumidifier that's not working right now. Can your guys fix it? I said, absolutely. Now, that was the truth. Our guys were really highly technical skilled guys. They were what you think about when you think about like really high-end technical skilled service departments that haven't built out professionalism yet, which is they're all like top-notch technically, like just high-skilled guys, but they're rough.
They can fix anything, but not make you a lot of money.
No, but man, they can absolutely fix anything.
Right.
I'll tell you a story about that in a moment. So our guys went up there and they fixed it, and Benny was thrilled. They replaced the compressor. They got it going. He said, let me introduce you to Arthur Jones. He's the public works director, but he's also responsible for all the city maintenance. I said, fantastic. So I go up and I meet Mr. Jones. And at the time, they've got a contract with someone else, but I got a lot of time on my hands. So I'm nurturing that contract, that opportunity. And on a Saturday, he calls me up and says, we have a dead compressor. Could you come out here and replace it for us? I come look at it. Can't get these other guys on the phone. I left Ruston, drove straight over there to Bastrop, got my bid. Boom, I'm in, man. I got my second job. And I joined the Kiwanis Club of Bastrop. And Bastrop is a minority community. And, man, I had so much fun there. And the day I joined the Kiwanis Club, the mayor, who was Mayor, it was Mayor Hawkins, Arthur Jones, Public Works Director, Mayor Hawkins. He introduces me, says, hey, we want to welcome Todd. And everybody was very kind to me. And then the sheriff stood up, and the sheriff was a white man. Me and the sheriff were the only two white men in the room. And he said, we want to welcome Todd to the group. He's going to lighten up the mood a little bit. And everybody started laughing. I'm like, oh, whoa, not only are they friendly, they got a sense of humor. So, man, that was one of the best relationships I had. Because we ended up getting the entire city of Bastrop. We ended up getting the entire facilities for the Morehouse parish, which is where the city was. The sheriff introduced me to the penitentiary systems. That one relationship ended up being a little bit shy of $1 million in returning service for me. So by like my second year there, I had built up from zero $3.4 million in recurring services and contracts. And most of that was averaged at about a 6% commission rate. So I was making good money young in the early 2000s. And I started doing residential. And the reason why I started doing residential was because, the mayor and Arthur Jones and all of these people that own houses said, hey, would you replace my air conditioning system? And I started pricing out replacements for air conditioning. It became obvious to me. I'm like, we need to get in the residential market. There is a ton of money here. We are serving all of these communities. We have this great name. People are like hungry for it. So, I was absolutely convinced that's what we needed to do. That was going to be part number 2. And Mike said, well, I'm not so sure. If you're going to do it, you better know how to do it right. So he had gotten one of those mailers that people get way back in the day, Airtime 500, all those guys used to send out mailers. That's how they would promote. They would literally put cassette tapes in the mailers and you could listen to them. Pretty interesting marketing. So I had set up to go to a Dallas one, and we got almost there outside of Shreveport. and a power line had fallen over the entire interstate. We couldn't get through. There was no route arounds. So I missed that one. And then the next one was in New Orleans on a weekend. And I was the only one that was committed to go. No, they were going to do it when they were getting paid for it on a work day, Rodney. But no one was going to go with me on New Orleans on a weekend. So I drove down there, and I really hit it off with Carl DeBenny. And by the end of it, and Carl DeBenny worked there for a long time, and now he's back there. By the end of it, Carl DeBenny's talking to me. He's like, man, you need to come work for us. You got the right mindset. You're motivated. You got the right attitude. So I thought about it, and I really was like, I think I want to stay here. They were even giving me equity partnership on the table at Service First, but I evaluated like my long-term future. And at Service First, I was elevating everything to the best that I could with just my exposures, which that was it. It was just the best that I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to them like, well, why don't we join Airtime? Why don't we get to know what this is all about? And they wouldn't do it. And I'm over here going, well, they've given me an offer. I haven't told them that. And then eventually I was like, listen, either we're going to do this and we're going to pursue this residential part of our business as well, or I'm going to go learn it. And they didn't want to do it. So my wife and I moved to St. Louis, Missouri, because I felt like, the residential business was A, where I wanted to be, and B, I felt like I wanted to get exposure to a different way of thinking. So I went over there. I think I was like probably 24. I might have been 25. I think I was 24 because I'd worked at Service First for about 3 years. And within a year, I was promoted to the director of training. So Carl was the director when I was there, and it might have been a year and a half. And then Denise Swafford, and then I took it over after Denise. And I stayed as the director of training until I left because I wanted to move to Texas. And I became a 15% partner in a business here. So, yeah, man, I chose the residential path on purpose, and I chose pursuing education because I've always felt it was important.
So two things I want to ask you there. One is, how did you go? What jumped you so quickly in that year where you moved to St. Louis, and then a year now you're like director of training? Where did you get so polished on the training side so quickly?
I owe it to my teachers. Dan Obey, who introduced me to extemporaneous speaking, speech and debate, Lincoln Douglas debate. And then when I went to Oak Grove, Dane introduced me to Hogan Bramlett, who got me in the arts. And I had, and also I was in all the gifted and accelerated programs. Even at seminary, they actually, for a small school, had some wonderful gifted and accelerated programs. So I got exposed at a very early age to public speaking, and then I went to school for it. So by the time I was 21 and was doing this professionally, I've already got under my belt from about grade 6 through college, speech and communication. My degree is in speech and communication with an emphasis in theater. So I had learned the nuances of reading a script, learning how to memorize a script, learning how to find subtext to the script, learning how to deliver that context. And listen, I want to tell you what I do and what I teach my guys. In essence, we are professional consultants. We know exactly what we're talking about. But when it comes to training and when it comes to sales, knowing how to present, whether that's because you learned it from a speech communication or speech and debate, you learn how to poise argument, you learn how to be cool under pressure, you learn how to handle objections. Because I don't know if you've ever done a Lincoln Douglas debate, but when you get two people head to head and you're literally trying to obliterate the other person with an intelligent argument and with cutting wit, it teaches you a thing or two about, selling to someone face to face in a home. And then when you do theater, and theater isn't about obliterating someone, which that's sort of aggressive sales. Theater is about a group of people on the stage working together to create an experience for the audience that is informative and enjoyable. It teaches you not to make an enemy of the person sitting across the table from you. You blend those things together, That's the reason why, in large part, I was able to move so quickly, was because I had a lot of the raw materials that a lot of people don't get exposed to after 30 years of training, and nor would they do it because they're scared to put themselves out there. They're scared to be a tree. Stupid stuff they have you do in theater, but in the end, it's like, hey, that's actually really useful, man. And,
So do you use some of those techniques in your training today with the
I'm
people
using it right now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
super interesting to hear that, because obviously I know other sales trainers and they're not teaching that. They're teaching their process. But if you take someone who their tonality is off, the way that their facial expressions, the way that their posture, if they've never been taught any of that stuff, but you're just like, well, I think, I've done sales, my whole background's in sales. And it's like, well, because you know how to call 200 people a day. I mean, eventually you're going to get yeses. You know how to, like, are you persuasive? Are you aggressive? But like, I've never heard anyone in the HVAC sales or home service sales take the approach that there's other methods than just the process to go inside somebody's home, how to knock on the door, how to present in a certain way, that you got to kind of go back to the fundamentals.
Well, so here's the interesting thing. I think most sales, I drew a picture over here. I'll show it to you on my phone in just a second. But most sales are really, and most sales training is not really good, because it's built upon how many numbers do you have to call, activities, and activities are not bad. Don't get me wrong. But here, let me show you this. I didn't draw this because of me coming on here with you. It was something that I was contemplating.
Okay.
But for those of you that can't see what I've got 3 things written on this. I've got integrity, which is doing good, motivation, what excites you, and incentive, which is outside influence.
Okay.
Now, if you were to draw circles that overlapped each other, and you take integrity and you take motivation and you overlap that part of the circle, that's purpose. That's why someone does what they do. It's their why.
Yeah.
Now, if you take integrity and incentive, someone doing good with an outside influence, that's actually hope. It's the belief that something cool can happen. It's like, oh, I hope this can happen. I hope I can make that sale.
Yep.
Now, if you take motivation and incentive and you do not add integrity to it, and this is where a lot of sales training is taught. They're all about motivation. They're all about incentive. What you have is you have a self-serving situation that's very dangerous. But when you overlap all 3 of them right in the middle, like right dead in the middle, when you've got integrity, motivation, and the proper incentive, now you have service excellence. So we are not a sales training company. A byproduct of what we do is that we teach people to be amazing at sales. We are a service excellence company. And that really messes with a lot of people. They don't get that. My buddy Joe Coursera gets that. And he told me that's why he changed his name. I said, that's why I didn't name my company Sales Excellence. I named it Service Excellence. And he said, that's why I changed the name of my company from Contractor Selling to Pure Motivation, because I got it eventually, right? Which is, if we're trying to sell people, we're really screwing it up. And I think the biggest part of screwing it up, and I'm going to go to one of my great influences, Roy Williams, on this, is that you have to sell the heart. You sell the heart and the mind will follow. Too many people are trying to sell the mind. Well, how do you sell the heart? Well, one, you can't be a lying bastard. You need to really be a person of integrity. When you say you're doing the right thing is, Jonathan, look, I evaluated your system from top to bottom, and it's 8 years old. And here's the reality of it. It's in great shape. You've been doing your maintenance with us for the last 8 years straight. There's not a speck of dirt in that system. And about the worst thing that's probably going to happen to you is you're going to have a capacitor fail in a year or 2. So you just need to keep doing what you're doing, and we're going to keep taking care of you. And if you just keep maintaining this system like this here in Texas, you're probably going to get 12 to 15 years out of this system. You put the wrong person in that home, they go, oh, Jonathan, your system is 8 years old. And woo, boy, you should see the readings on this. Well, why are they doing that? Because of the incentives and the lack of integrity. And you may go, oh, no, we're a company of integrity. Well, I'm going to say your actions speak louder than your words. And I want to know, when you're looking at sales numbers, are you considering the actual condition of what you're sending these salespeople to? Is that part of the equation? Or are you only looking at average tickets and close ratios? Because if that's the only part of your sales system, that ain't service. And frankly, I think that we have a really dangerous trap right now. It's sort of interesting, John. I've been doing this a long time, man. And for a long time, my biggest challenge was convincing people that you are worthy, that you are capable, that you have value, that this is worth doing. Just convincing people that they're worth charging a job that will get them 65 to 55% gross margin on service, 55 to 45% gross margin on replacement. That was a hard task to do. It took a long time for people to adapt into that. And then somewhere along the way, what happened was the message was picked up by some people that it wasn't about doing what was right, because charging those margins is actually doing what is right. Because if you charge those margins, you can deliver on promises, you can stay in business, you can do what's right. They took those messages and they started getting them twisted. And they went so far to the other extreme that a lot of your early adopters couldn't feel good about charging the proper price. And then somewhere along the way, some of the late adopters were like, I feel great about, recommending things that people don't need. I feel fine because the only thing I'm focused on is how fast can we grow and how much money are we making. And I'm never talking to my salespeople or my technicians about doing the right thing. I say do the right thing, but I don't really mean it. And all my incentives and motivations show I don't.
Right.
And so it's a weird scenario to be us right now, because we've been teaching people to do the right things for a long time. And for those people that are still stuck in those old school way of thinkings, they'll go, oh, yeah, you guys are nothing but salespeople. I'm like, no, we're not. Y'all haven't been paying attention. And for the ones that are being successful, because let me tell you, you can actually do it the wrong way and produce massive numbers for a period of time.
Right.
And that period of time will depend in large part on how big your market is. The bigger your market is, the more people you can take advantage of over time. The smaller your market, that ain't going to last very long. So unfortunately, social media has created an atmosphere that looks like those bad behaviors are nothing but rewarded, and you don't ever see anything but the rewards.
Yep.
And I'm against it. I don't know how else to put it. I am against it. We don't teach that here, and we never will.
Yeah, that's it's really unfortunate. But you articulated that extremely well, and I think social media has it appears that people are being put up on pedestals for some of these. I just call them I think shady tactics, and but they see someone go from 0 to 50 million overnight, and it's like, well, if he can do it, I can do it, right? And it's like, and when you start hearing some of the stories of, $1,500 to change out a capacitor, now, somebody wants to say certain markets, you got to be able to charge certain things, but at the end of the day, that capacitor is not costing any more in one market than it is another, not substantial anyway. Like, as far as the capacitor goes itself, the piece, the part, and so when someone else hears that and they go, well, why can't I charge that? And then it's like, then it kind of spreads like cancer, I feel, is like, and I think that's, man, it's unfortunate. It really is.
Well, my dad's going through some serious health struggles right now. And so he just got checked out of the hospital yesterday. He desperately needs to have a heart valve repair. Now, he was in the hospital about a week before this, right? And the week before, they told him, oh, there's some things on here your cardiologist is going to want to talk to you, but he wants to give you a week or two before he talks to you. So, bad news. He knows it's bad news. He even recorded the conversation and sent it to me and my sister, where he's asking them what it is, and they're punting. They won't tell him. So they release him out of the hospital. They tell him he's got pneumonia caused by COVID. They release him out of the hospital. He goes back in the hospital. This is all happening fresh right now. He's back in the hospital. And by the way, when they sent him out, they told him he was having kidney failure because of all the LASIK he was taking, but they gave him the LASIK for his congestive heart failure. Well, he's feeling terrible. He goes back into the hospital, and they're like, oh, the COVID's got nothing to do with it. What it is, they don't want to tell him, but eventually they say, you've got all this fluid on you because of this valve issue you have, which they didn't tell him about. So now they're poking the man. They drain 1.5 liters of fluid out of his chest. He's weak, and he needs this valve thing done. And they're going, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to do it and send you home. It's an inpatient surgery. Well, then the doctor goes, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to wait a couple of weeks, but we're going to go ahead and send you home. You still have congestive heart failure. You still have this valve problem. And I asked the real critical question, which is, hey, Dad, ask him this. If you came to the ER with all these conditions, would they send you home or would they admit you? Oh, we'd admit you. So why are you sending me home? I'll tell you why they're sending him home. I have no doubt in my mind. They're trying to hit those Medicaid periods. They sent him home on the 31st. They need to let a fresh month come up so they can recycle their billing. This is a problem.
Right.
When we are trusting service professionals to do work that they have skills to do, and when the incentives become about billing and how much money you can make, and it's not about the health of the patient or what is in the client's best interest, sure, you're going to get rich. Yeah, you're going to get rich. You probably will. Can you sleep with yourself at night? Can you look at yourself in the mirror? Well, if you can, I don't want to be your friend.
That's right. And I was going to say, though, a lot of people can, unfortunately, right?
Well, I don't want to be your friend.
I
if
like
that's
the way you worded that, because that's people that, I keep my circle very tight, and that's, people that can live with themselves doing that. I don't want to be their friend either. So here's something that I've had a problem with is I see this industry getting more closer in line with being a car mechanic than it's ever been before, as far as no one trusts a mechanic. Nobody in the last 20 or 30 years that I've ever known of is excited that they're having car problems, because not that they're like, oh, well, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be 1,000 different things. And if you were to take it to 12 mechanics, everybody would say it was something different and wrong with your vehicle. So that's where this industry has been stuck here in the last decade. I feel like last 5 or 6 years, it's just gotten worse that, if you were to get a second or third opinion, you may have typically 2 or 3 different, quotes are going to come from it and different recommendations. And I'm going, wait a minute. Why is that the case? You can't tell me there's any of the companies are being ethical in that situation, because anytime in the last, I remember being in high school, so over 20 years ago, if the check engine light came on in your car, you could go down to AutoZone and they would connect it and it would tell you what the problem was and what part you need to replace. And I'm going, the internet was just coming around, and we didn't have smartphones. We definitely didn't have AI controlling things. But why can't we get to that same place? Why are we letting an incentivized technician? And I'm not saying, not everyone is that way, because as long as they have integrity and everything that they're doing lines up in that center of the picture you just showed, then that's great. But there's so many that aren't. And I understand it's hard to run a business, and you're trying to find that perfect employee that has integrity, cares about the customer, can also go and offer and communicate the things that you service or sell in your business. Because I've seen it. Sometimes they get a great technician and they pride themselves on, I can fix anything. Give me that 25-year-old system and I'm going to go fix that shit. And it's like, well, that's not good, because
that's not doing the right thing either, right?
That's not doing the right thing. But so finding that perfect person, I know is not easy, but I just don't get why we still live in a world where we have to find this perfect human to be able to do everything for us. When can we get some of that control out of the human hands?
Well, so here's the thing, right? We're in a service industry, and when you talk about getting the control out of the human hands, and we serve plumbing, electrical, air conditioning. Uh, my partner Aaron Santos and I serve roofing out of Roof Coach in a fourth industry. All of these people are highly trained professionals. And I think the one area that could be at most danger of coming out of the hands of the technicians is actually HVAC, because I think that if we're not careful or aware, even if we are careful and aware, I think there's just a very strong incentive. That system is so electrically controlled. There's just there's a lot of money. Let me see here. I looked it up here. Just in the residential HVAC world, there's $126 billion, and a lot of that is going to the contractor. There's a big incentive for those players to get a bigger piece of that pie. And the only way that they're going to do that is if they take it out of the hands of the technician. So I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm actually not in favor of taking it out of the hands of the technicians. This might be the one place where not a union, but an organization where, and I don't have the time for this, but I've had the passion for this for a long time, where an organization of people come together, and I don't want to call it a union because it's not a union, but it's a group where all of the air conditioning contractors in the world can agree upon one thing, which is they will fight with unified money to the death manufacturers who want to take service out of their hands. And I think that's probably the most pressing issue in the world of HVAC right now that no one's talking about. I do not want to be looked at 10 years from now and go, Todd called it. But someone needs to take the mantle up on that.
So
Because
what do you mean by it? Because I want to make sure we're
I'll
on
tell
the
you what I
same
mean
page.
by that.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, all of these systems are technologically controlled. And how hard would it be for, Linux or Goodman or Carrier to drop a little AI into the system to where they're monitoring it completely, and then decide that they're going to build systems that are modular in nature, to where instead of having to have a screwdriver and the ability to do wires, I mean, you just build a panel board where you pop it in, pop, and you pull it out. You get it to that level, you never even need a technician to go on site and diagnose it. All the diagnosing will be done 100% remote, and it is sent to Goodman, and Goodman says, hey, let's just dispatch someone straight to your home. You don't even have to be there. Here's the price for this repair, yes or no. That's where it's going. And if HVAC contractors don't come together and fight that, they could see their business dissolve in time. Because you get an Elon Musk decide that he wants to be in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he would do.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what he would do. He wouldn't let the repair of his Tesla go outside of Tesla. A Tesla air conditioning is going to be AI monitored and controlled, and it's going to be done by Tesla technicians.
Yeah, I didn't look at it, from that perspective, like what you're saying. I mean, obviously I was going down that road because I'm just going, why can't there be some kind of device to help everyone get on the same page of what's wrong with the system? Because having the inconsistency has made people jaded, and they don't want to call a plumber or an HVAC person, just like they don't want to take their car to a mechanic unless it's BMW or Mercedes, where they run on, I feel like shops differently as far as customer service from the time you get there to your car's finished.
I don't think the device is bad, Jonathan. I think if we had the device for the AI, that would be good. I think what's bad is it's exactly like what's going on right now in with the Writers Guild. It's no different. Writers Guild and Actors Guild, they figured this shit out. Pardon me if you got to bleep that, but they figured this out. They figured it out, and it took the entire Writers Guild and Actors Guild. They come together and they protest, they picket, they're not writing anything. And ultimately, there's many things that they want, but they really want two things. They want two things. Number one, AI is never allowed to write script or participate into writing scripts. I don't know if you know that. That's what they got out of it. AI is out. They cannot write a script that will go in television, radio, any production, any movie. Their script writing ability to do that and replace actors is now gone. They protected that. Number two, AI can't automatically remove an actor. They can't do an AI generated actor completely from top to bottom, repurpose their image, repurpose their voice, and the actor not get paid for that anymore.
Okay.
I'm talking about the same thing here. I'm not saying AI is bad. AI is good. AI is a wonderful tool. Yes, I agree. We should have those things inside of systems. What I'm saying is that you do that without the contractors demanding and protecting their rights. Because let's be honest about it. Do they actually have a right? No. Let me be super clear, air conditioning contractors. There is no law on the book that actually gives you the right to exclusivity of the market to repair and service and replace air conditioning systems. If a manufacturer decides they want to build out their own department, they can. Why don't they do it? Because right now, in the current scenario, it would be the kiss of death because you would quit buying air conditioning systems from them.
Right.
Look at the people that are already moving away from car dealerships. The manufacturer wants a bigger piece of the pie. And I'm probably not making any friends with manufacturers. I'm sure there's some that don't feel this way right now, but man, I would be shocked if an honest CEO or board of directors would come on this program and say, "No, we've never thought about that, Todd." Bull. You're thinking about it, you're planning it. You're doing the predictive models of what the upset will be, and you've learned what governments have learned, which is just slow it out, just roll it out one cut at a time.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, I don't have enough energy or bandwidth to focus on that other than every now and then going, can someone please be that person? And when you become that person, don't do it for self-aggrandizing reasons. Don't do it because all you really care about is making a lot of money. You're going to charge a premium and wrap it up with training and some other bull crap. Don't do that. I'm calling you out right now if you do that. Do it for one reason, which is to protect the right of service and replacement for all the little air conditioning companies that will be and are today. Because, by the way, they're all little. Any business with less than 500 employees, even in the big game of things where we go, man, that company's doing 100 million, that's still a small business in America.
So, that takes me to another topic that obviously will not be super popular with some. And that's, like, what do you feel that the private equity game is doing to the industry?
I got a lot of feelings about that. And I don't have all the information that some other people would have. You speak to some people that have played in it directly, they will tell you. So what I'll do is I'll just give you an outside perspective. Reliable Automotive. They're right by our house. We've used them for years and years and years, and really love the way that they treated us, their customer service, their what felt like transparency in all things. And we take our car in there last year, the year before last, right? And it felt different. I mean, it felt different. The way they spoke to us was different. Same people behind the counter, but you could tell their motivations have changed. The words that they used have changed. And I'm listening at it, and then the prices that they're presenting to me have definitely changed. I'm aware of some of the basic prices, and I'm going, what's going on here, right? And I look at the guy, and I say to him, I say, can I ask you a question? Yeah. Did you guys sell your company? He looked at me and said, yeah, man, private equity came in and bought us. Same people that own Lambs. By the way, Lambs is on the other corner. And I'm going, well, how do you like it? Oh, it's different. It's different. I was like, all right. So here's the thing about here's what I believe about most service companies. I believe most service companies in our market today, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, they were built around a leader with a vision. And this leader with a vision created that culture. And I believe that most people hire to work under that leader and that vision and that culture. And it depends on the leader, but most leaders are typically people that are serving of their community. I really do believe that. I believe that their incentive and their motivation and their integrity lines up. And from what I have seen from my friends who have sold their private equity company is it doesn't take them very long to think to themselves, when can I get out of this? How long until I'm done here? Are there an exceptions to the rule? Yeah, there is. You know, I'm thinking about Alan O'Neill, definite exception to the rule. Alan stayed at Abacus for a long period of time and still did the day to day. And I want to say that for as long as Alan was at Abacus, he maintained those three pillars. I really feel that way. I think Alan and Wrench Group is a great example of they let Alan do his job, and it seems to me that they stood out of his way. So there are exceptions, and I don't know every one of the private equity groups, so I can't
Right.
throw them in a bucket.
Right. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I actually try to not get too worried about that stuff because what happens for most private equity groups when they buy one of our clients is they give us a nice, pat on the back, say, thank you for getting them there. And we were smarter than you and know better than you. See you. All right, great. And then a year later, they've got complete turnover for the most part.
Yeah.
So do I think private equity is bad? No.
Right.
It's made a lot of people rich. That was the dream. Do I think private equity has some problems? I think some of them do. And I'm not being politically correct. I called out, Alan O'Neill and Abacus and Wrench Group, and this is all opinion, by the way, right?
Yeah.
I got no like here's the evidence of this other than my own experiences. So whatever private equity group that's wanting to work up a case against me, there's my disclaimer.
Yeah.
From what I saw with Alan and Wrench Group, they let him do his thing, and Alan did it. Can I say that every one of Wrench Group's companies acted and maintained themselves like Alan? I don't know because I don't know them all.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some that probably acted and maintained like what their current leader looked like. But I can tell you that, like, I'm thinking of a friend who I'm not going to call his name out. I'm only going to call out the positives. I'm not going to call out the negative. But I know he don't like it, and I know he left, and I know he couldn't get out of there fast enough. And there's at least 4 or 5 of those guys. And you go, well, why? And it always comes down to, well, they say this is the way it's going to be, and then it ain't. It's another way. It's like, all right. So private equity is meant to make money.
That's right.
They're meant to, most of their models are built upon, 3 to 5 years. I think they use the word arbitrage. I'm not even sure if I'm technically using it correct. For those of you that know, but I think it essentially means, hey, if I buy this company, I pay them, 6x, and say that company's, $5 million. When I buy this other company and now I got 10 million, well, I can pay that company maybe 6x too, but now my 10 million I could turn around and sell for 2x. Not even improving service. I'm just worth more. Now, if I can do that and get to 100 million, now I can sell it for 17x. Now, if I can do that and hang on to this for 3 to 5 years and flip it in a hurry, well, if I bought everything for 5 and I sold it for 12, and I only had to take a 3 to 5 year risk at that, what I'm really motivated to do is to get my profit margins as high as I can because I want that 12x times a high profit margin. And is there anything wrong with that? Not if that's your business model. Private equity, do you? You are following your business model. But I think the question is different. I think the question is that what that company was built upon? And the answer is probably no. Yeah. Does it make it wrong that the owner sold that company to someone that didn't follow through with their dreams? No, there's actually no wrongs being done here, except to maybe one group of, well, actually there could be some wrongs being done. If the company maintained everything the way it was done and only improvements were done, there's 3 wins, right? There's client, company, team member win. But I'm not too sure that the 3 wins always happen. So here'd be my piece of advice. And I'm sure no private equity company is going to be calling me for consultation now. But my piece of advice to you would be bring the best of the past forward. Don't throw it away. Bring the best of the past forward. What these people have done to build these businesses that you wanted to buy was good. Don't buy them with the thought process of they're all a bunch of dumbasses and you're going to make so much more money than they did. And he. That's no good. Make it a partnership. Bring the best of the past forward. Don't alienate your people and don't start changing things. You all say you're not going to change things. Don't start changing things in the first year unless there's critical things that are failing in the business. If you bought a failing business, make the changes. But if it's healthy and it's operating, let it operate for a year before you start shaking it up, because you're going to lose a lot of people if you don't.
So I asked you that question
I
because
wanted to talk about all that. I'm not sure what this is going to do to me, but we're going to find out.
I was on, and the reason I brought the topic up, Todd, was simply because you were talking about getting that alliance together to make sure that they're protected, to not lose service and replacement business from the manufacturers, right? From the distributors and manufacturers. And so what led me to that question was, all I keep hearing is, because like you take any private equity, let's just take it in one big group, they're there to make money. All of us are, but I think they're
exit quickly too, for the most part.
They're
there to make money, but they're also there to exit quickly with the most amount of money as they can get.
Correct. And so when you go into a business, there's only a couple ways that you can increase revenue or profits quickly. It's get more customers or charge more money. Unless I'm looking at that wrong, right? But if you're looking at it from a short period that you're trying to exit, a lot of times if you do both of those quickly, it usually looks like, well, how do we buy more marketing or more leads, and how do we make sure that we're collecting as most as we possibly can out of those? And when you do that, sometimes that's obviously not going to fall in line with anything related to service excellence. It's going to be,
it's short-term thinking. It is the ultimate problem of short-term thinking. So, and you're right in what you said. Also include, cutting expenses, and some of the ways that these guys actually can cut expenses in an ethical way that a lot of the smaller guys can is they've got the power of leverage when it comes to their buying power.
Right.
There's also some legitimate expenses that can be done in the sense of, consolidating certain call centers and other things that actually can be done quite well. I know that comes at the risk of jobs, but there are aspects of business that you go, that just actually makes really good sense. I think if we were to sort of sum up the essence of what I'm saying, is my probably one of my biggest issues with some private equities, not all, because I've sat down across from tables, across from people that run private equities that have a long-term vision, like a 10 to 15 year hold, and they want to grow businesses. There's fewer of those, but they do exist. Is that I think so I'm not going to just put private equity into this pool. I'm going to put anyone into this pool that is thinking about something from a real short-term perspective. And I think that when you get a real short-term vision on something, and what I mean is by short-term is like, how does it affect after this 3-year period? I think when you adopt that perspective, it actually prevents you from seeing like what some of the right choices are. I'll just go to marketing just for the sake of example, and I know that's your bread and butter. But if we look at marketing and we say to ourselves that we're not going to do any real work of branding, and there's a big difference between lead generation and advertisement and branding, and ideally we can make them work together. But branding is the emotional recall. It's what people think about you long after you're gone. And when you look at the work that takes, we got to understand that we've got like 3 different levels of memory. This is like Roy 101. But one level of memory is electrical memory, and that gets erased real quick. Electrical memory gets erased essentially when we go to sleep. We don't remember what happened next day. Then we've got chemical memory where it's embedded a little bit deeper. And then we have this other level of memory, which is where like branding exists. It's almost like muscle memory for the mind, where we begin to get associations with things. It's like when we see, we can see a silhouette of 3 circles, one big circle and 2 circles set off to the side, to the right and the left. And that has deep associations. You see Mickey Mouse and there's deep emotion and associations with that. That's branding. Well, when we get short-term thinking wrapped around in our brain, about the only people that benefit from that is Google. They love your short-term perspective because it makes their pay-per-click rates go through the roof. They love it. Thank you so much for being a dummy.
Yep.
And it's true. And I'll talk to some PPC guys. They're like, "Oh, Todd, shut up about that." But I'm not going to not tell the truth. It's the truth. So when you get short-term thinking, and a lot of business owners do this, and a lot of private equity companies do this, they put branding to the side. They think that the only thing that branding is image. An image is a component of what recalls that emotional connection, right? But it isn't the brand. It is a symbol of the brand. The brand is what you have done to their mind. So when we get short-term thinking, we essentially start eroding our brand because now we're just looking for direct call to action. We're looking for discounts. We're looking for instant gratification, and that becomes really expensive. So short-term thinking, you might go, you know what? I'm going to throw in a bunch of dollars. I'm going to drive revenue. I'll do it in the short term. Everybody else can just suffer. Like, why do we think, at least in my opinion, why do we think the cost for clicks continues to go up and they continue to be sold when there isn't even that many more clicks to be made? But yet they keep selling them because people have become addictive to the short-term reactions in life. It's like a drug, man.
Yeah.
And what's good for you is exercise and spending time with your people and building long-term relationships. That takes time, right? But perfect examples, like if we have a client that comes to us and they need help in their business, and they're like, how quickly can I expect results? Do you think you're having my average ticket up in 30 days? Just go away.
Right.
Because all you want is some crack cocaine. You don't actually want to change the culture of your business. I can't help you.
I love it. Like I've had to make that shift. I got to spend some time with Roy. I got to go down to the facility in Austin, and I've done a lot of reading and research, and had to change my thought process over the last several years of like how important branding truly is, to the point where the reason why I'm doing all this traveling and going with my video guys to do this, one, I'm, because I don't hold a camera and I don't have any part of the strategy process really that I'm responsible for. But I'm telling them everything we're moving to is brand first. Like, I want to create content where you're providing value, you're giving advice, you're showing the high quality work that you do by getting, some of your customers on camera talking about their experience working with you. And it all starts there. It's top of funnel, middle funnel, and that's where you need to invest. And you stop, like, you will not show anyone one of your amazing offers until they're at the bottom of your funnel and they now know, like, and trust you and know everything they need to know about you. And you're going to have to touch them 12 to 16, 18 times before we're even going to show them any kind of offer. And so, and they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, because it doesn't work. Everyone out there has payments as low as $59, furnace for $2,000. Like, you don't, if that's the category you want to be in, go be in it. Go compete at the bottom. Go hang out with the flies, the fleas. It's just not, it's not what you're telling me you want. So what I'm telling you is we're going to invest heavily with you on your branding.
That's right.
And then you're going to get business from that, but it's not going to happen overnight instantly. And, and it's, we're having to tell people, we're sorry, we can't work with you either, because they need their business to do miracles in the next 30 to 60 days. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. Long-term doesn't. So.
Yeah. And I can tell you, we've made the mistakes. It's sort of a weird thing, right, for us, because one of the mistakes that we made, and we still sometimes sort of make this too, is that our mission is to bring power and hope to the residential trades through training that is proven and ethical. Well, that's the face mission at value. But the word mission, when you look at like what mission means, like in my brain, because I sort of have some of this upbringing in the church, to me, a mission is about investing into something that you hope will get a return, but in all sincerity, it's probably not going to be very profitable. You know what I mean? You're making some sacrifices. You're doing hard work. You're trying to reach people that don't necessarily want to be changed. And I adopted that for a long time here. And I still have a strong portion of that. You know, Spark is designed to help people that aren't even doing their first 2 million yet. We're our business ignition program. Most of those clients are 5 and above. Here was the problem that I was creating for myself is that we were so passionate about helping someone be so much better and knowing that we have the skill set to do it. What we weren't realizing is that not everyone that can say yes should be saying yes because their mind's not ready.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm doing the best thing that I can here. I've got to really convince these people that they need to do this because it will change their life. But it will only change their life if they're ready. It's sort of weird. In the world of air conditioning, you're going to replace air conditioning systems that are broken. In the world of consulting and training, we can fix broken businesses, but we can't fix broken minds. The mind has to be ready, and then we can fix the business. And we were trying to fix broken businesses and broken minds. So the reason why we do all the free content and the reason why we've upped it, like I've upped it up to a whole new level, almost 3 videos a day, is because I realize that I can fix someone's mind, but that's going to take extended periods of time. And they got to be like, okay, I got to get my mind fixed. And they might need to watch my free content for a year before it clicks and they go, oh, I get what he's saying now.
Yeah.
Now I'm ready. I'm going to call him. But if the mind isn't ready, and man, I should have known this, Jonathan. What happens when you throw seed onto rocky ground? I wasn't listening to wisdom because I thought, oh, that was for religion. That wasn't for me. So you know, and a lot of people do this. It's the same problem we all have when we think we're doing the right thing and we're not. Does it make us people of lack of integrity? Not at all. It just made us not realize that we were putting our energies where we shouldn't have put them.
No.
And actually, when we put our energy where it shouldn't be put, you know what happens? Is you end up working with people that aren't ready, and then they blame you for their failure when it wasn't you, it was them.
Yep. Man,
Right?
I love hearing you say all this because I struggle with that because there's a side of me, when it comes to the marketing side, like I want to help anyone, even though like we typically don't work with anyone that's under $2.5–3 million and wanting to grow aggressively. Like if they reach out, like I want to be able to find a way to help them, and I've done stuff for next to free because like the compassionate side of me says like, I love seeing a small business have success and their staff. And,
I'm going to change the way you think for a second. Okay.
Okay.
You're doing what everyone else is doing. It's the reason why I created Spark, and I'm dragging my knuckles through the ground. That's my cross to bear. That is my mission. But let me give you something here. I'm just going to go some stats. These stats are taken from a lot of different sources, and you know how stats are. You're going to get some different stats somewhere else. But plumbing companies, there's 130,000 and some change plumbing companies. The total revenue in plumbing right now is 134 billion. But when you divide that by the average of that divided by 130,000, that comes out to an average revenue of $1,028,396. If you look at the world of HVAC, 140,000 contractors in the U.S., 126 billion. Less money, surprisingly enough. That's $899,846 per average company. Electrical, more. This was the biggest surprise to me of all. 238,000 companies, 234 billion, an average revenue of 980. So the point is that the average size business, if we go at that rate, and of course there's outliers, right? But the average size business is $1 million and under. And all of us have built businesses to serve the $3 to $5 million businesses. We're making a mistake. we're not serving the people that need it the most. So that's why I created Spark. You know, the entire program for a year is $6,000. Jonathan, in that program, we're going to take you 7 steps. We're going to fix your gross margin. We're going to fix your pricing, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning. We're going to have your prices fixed. You don't have to buy a software. We think software is great, but you don't have to buy it. We're going to fix your prices. We can put you on a paper price book that you can print off that will fix your gross margin. We're going to get your overhead where it needs to be at step 2. Number 3, we're going to teach you to sell. Number 4, we're going to show you how to align with a quality install crew, because you can't afford to have a full-time install crew, and you shouldn't be putting your people in the field if you've only got 1 or 2 of you. We're going to get you to 3 installs a week, 2 highly converting techs, and then get you up to 40 calls a week. Here's my challenge to you, Jonathan. I'm challenging you. I'm challenging Matt Benton. I'm challenging every person that says they're in the world of marketing. Find a solution for these guys that will make sense for them and you.
Yeah.
Because they all need to do what Roy's doing. But it's the same thing, right? And by the way, I'm a partner at the Wizard of Ads. But the best thing that we can do is give them super high quality education and help direct them. Because the same thing, right? In mass media, you have to have a certain amount of traction you got to have a certain amount of money to be able to do mass media. It's not going to work. My challenge to you is figure out a way. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe it's just education, but figure out something that you can do for these guys that aren't making $3 million.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, listen, everybody, listen to what I'm saying. If us serving these people as an industry do not figure out how to nurture these small guys, we won't have an industry to nurture.
I love it. And Todd, I will take your challenge and go to my team, and we'll figure this out, because it brings me back to a place where we used to focus on a much, like I had some big manufacturer partnerships, and these a certain manufacturer that I was partnered with, like they were like if they were your first line, it was a smaller dealer, right? Under $1 million for sure. And if they were, if they were with a larger dealer, it was their third line that they were selling. So, but life seemed to be easier working with some of those smaller contractors. They just really wanted help getting their business, to a profitable place where they can kind of take care of things. I don't know. I like what you just said. And I think there's definitely a way to do it.
Well, listen, what I said was it's mission based. Like, we need the people that can afford our premier services, and we're providing premier work for those services. We need our business ignition clients. We need wonderful people like Steve and Rachel Egner, Lynn Tomasek and her sister and her brother over there at Brothers in Colorado. I mean, if I were to give the first shout out, believe it or not, the very first company that hired me to write the training and management programs was Jimmy Hiller. That was client number 1, right? I need those big companies to be able to get, things going, and God bless them. A year ago, I realized that, 65% of all businesses close their door within the first 5 years. And if you run the average of all businesses in America, let me see if I can find this number. I want to make sure I give you the right number. It's something like, for those that survive into their survival zone, it's like a little under $1 million. Most of the businesses out there, they're actually small guys. And think about the tough as nails son of a guns and son of a womans that are making it with basically no support. Right? Like, they're figuring stuff. That's why they're so hungry in the Facebook groups. And I'll be frank, that's also why I'm going to say it. That's also why some of these small guys are picking the wrong companies. Because, they see a TikToker or an influencer and it looks like help, and they go for it with gusto. So, people that have been doing it the right way for a long time. And what I'm gonna tell you, it's a mission work. I have figured out how to scale Spark to where it's actually profitable now, and we can reach people. But I'm going to tell you, sometimes it's just as hard to sign up, 20 Spark members at 6,000 a year as it is to sign up 10 Business Ignition members that might pay us 50,000 a year. And if I were just looking at it from a pure business standpoint, I'd go, well, this is dumb. I'm just going to put all my energy into Business Ignition. But this is my little stake in the ground. And my big vision is that I believe that if I believe with all of my heart that if I don't give up on it and I figure out how to talk to these little guys, that we will grow this organization to 5,000 contractors strong. We'll be the biggest organization of any kind in the trades.
I love it.
I believe it. I think it'll happen. And why? Because I ain't trying to sell it in 3 years. My perspective is I will quit working when I die. I'll take a lot of time off and have a lot of fun and relax and have a lot of vacations before I die, but I ain't going nowhere.
So you're saying Todd's not selling to private equity?
No, I've already turned down one offer. They write all the time. And listen, here's the other thing. Do I want to say never? No, because that would be dumb. What if 10 years from now, my wife gets cancer and I don't have someone in my seat? Hopefully that won't happen. But I can tell you this, it wouldn't be for financial need. I've built this business over 13 years from, making barely enough money in year one just to feed the family to where I'm at right now. And by the way, anybody, when you get a business that's producing double-digit profits and you're making more money than you can spend, and I'm like, how much money do you really need? Once you get your business going like that, and it's sort of headache free, or at least less headaches than most people have, and you go, I'm living off whatever you live off of. I'm living off 150, and I've got all these other hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions. Why do you want to sell that cash flow generator when you could use that cash to reinvest in your business, make it go quicker? You could use that cash to invest in properties. You could use that cash to invest in stocks. Once you get a cash flowing machine, why sell it for the potential of 3 to 5 years earning at your current spot? When if you keep growing, you're probably going to double in 5 years, and you'll look back and go, why the hell did I sell my money? I didn't really sell it for 6X or 7X or 10X. Now, by the way, if you got 20X, I say more power to you.
Right. I think those days are a little bit past us, though.
I think they're going past. But, my perspective on it is I do what I want to do. I absolutely love it. I'm jazzed every morning I get up. I've built my schedule at this point to where I'll take 7 weeks of vacation, and one week a month, I literally just do the work of thinking, which doesn't mean I'm sitting around with my thumb up my butt. I literally come into the office and I think about the business. And I'm going to tell you, when you get your business situated like that, why would you sell it? Because you're going to be bored and miserable when you've got nothing to do.
But if I had to guess, Todd, I would say 99%. Right? It's definitely in the high 90s. The reason why they sell is because they don't have their business in that place. They don't have the right processes. The business is running them. So in that heat of the moment, that 6, 7, 8X sounds amazing because they're sick of it, right? And then they hear the people or talk to the people that have gone through, your program or something, and they do have that business that's free flow and there's cash coming in. It's not super stressful. They're building a culture. And they go, why didn't I do that? And I think a lot of times they either got with the wrong people for help or they didn't get any help at all.
You're probably right.
So
you're probably right.
All right. So we're getting, I want to be respectful of your time. So, but I do got to go through my rapid fire questions with you.
I thought this was like Joe Rogan. We were just going to go till like 3 or 4 hours or until someone.
I got nothing but time, You
can go through your rapid fire questions. Go for it.
All right, let's go through some rapid fire. All right, so here we are. Rapid fire with Todd. Childhood hero.
I don't know. So many. Hulk Hogan.
Oh, that's a good one. Hulkamania. All right, beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Famous person that you would invite to dinner, dead or alive?
Roy Williams.
I'm sure you've had quite a few dinners with him.
I'd have more. I learn something every time.
That's right. He's got some stories. He's a very interesting person.
I'm going to tell you why. Super generous, super smart, and when you hang out with Roy, he makes you feel important.
Yep. I completely understand what you mean. What's something surprising that most people don't know about you?
I'm very, very strong.
I watch your videos, so I know you're a power lifter.
Yeah, I actually have abs. I have a fat face and I have abs.
Really?
Cool. Yeah.
If you had to make a sudden career change, what would it
be? I would probably, I'd probably bite the bullet and see if I could make the world a better place in politics.
That seems stressful.
I wouldn't be doing it for lack of stress. I'd want to try to change something.
And the last question: does Todd believe in aliens?
Do I believe in what?
Aliens.
Aliens. I believe that the possibility of it must be pretty high. Just from a statistical standpoint, I believe it must be pretty high. And I believe that they probably don't have the power yet to get here. But if they did, then we got nothing to worry about, because if they could get here and they haven't hurt us, I mean, they ain't going to.
That's right. Well, man, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Obviously, there's 1,000 other questions I wanted to get to and want to talk a little deeper on your training. What does that look like for someone coming through it? What can they expect? So I'd love to have you back on. I'd love to do a webinar or something with you, let you pick a couple topics that you want to present on, and let me bring some contractors on and let you give some of that 30 years of knowledge that you got there behind you.
It help.
I love the giving back. That's what you're made of, is, that you want to help people in whatever capacity it is in their life or their business. So this has been fun. I do appreciate it.
Hey man, thank you. It was all my pleasure.
There you go. Todd Liles. Thank you, brother.